Hi guys and welcome to the circus. So today, I am going to showcase to you guys my secret Pale Moon list in Vanguard Zero. I said before in my previous Zero deck profile that was my last deck profile in Zero because I would like to keep this list hidden for a while. This is the deck list that I participated with on Korag Wolzard's tournament. That was the only time that I want to test this out before showcasing it to you guys because all my previous deck lists that I went with didn't go really well on the previous Korag Wolzard tournaments. And this was the only list that actually showed some amazing results. I went to finals with this list, with finals going up against Spike Brothers, and it was an amazing match. It actually helped me learn a lot about the clan that I faced and about the deck that I am using right now. After all that happened there, I have no problem on saying that I don't need to change anything in this list, at least for now. But if you guys want to change it up a bit, feel free to do so. But for now, here is the deck list. Alright, right over here. Alright, so as you can see, I ran all 16 triple rares of Pale Moon as of now. And this list is actually hella expensive. There's no other double rare than the PGs. And as you might have noticed already, I didn't run the Crimson Beast Tamer engine. Instead, I used Jumping Jill. So let me first introduce the starter, and this is once again Smiling Presenter. Alright, so I still chose Smiling Presenter because she is such a free starter. She is amazing. She is really good because you get to filter out your deck. You get to fetch out your needed pieces, like for example a copy of Trapezius or a Dreamy Fortress, and it doesn't cost anything. In the TCG, she originally cost 1 CB, which is in Zero they didn't include it, and it was a really good buff. Also, when you're up against bad matchups such as Narukami or Kagura or anything else that can retire, Smiling Presenter can dodge those abilities because they like to snipe out your starters, right? Since Smiling Presenter doesn't cost anything, you can just use her right there and then fetch out anything from the top 10 cards, and then you're good to go. I would say that Smiling Presenter is more valuable than any booster, so you wanna keep on using her multiple times using your Trapezius, your limit breaks, and something like that. Next, on the grade 1 lineup, we run 4 copies of Purple Trapezius. I originally had 3 of her, so how did I manage to get the 4th one? Well, I tried to do a 1-pack opening on the Rivals banner. Luckily enough, I got my 4th Trapezius on that 1-pack. And by having 4 copies of her, I just tried out to maximize her and to see what happens if I have that much Trapezius to work with. And with all the play testing, I just realized the value of Trapezius in this list. The reason is, Trapezius is such a free call from Soul, and the one that you wanna spam the most is Smiling Presenter. You can just scoop in a unit, or you can scoop in 1 copy of her from your board, and then call out your Smiling Presenter and then fetch another 1 card from the top 10 cards. Like for example, if you wanna fetch another copy of Jill, or a copy of Dreamy Fortress, or so on and so forth. Having too much of her isn't that bad at all. Let's say for example, you have 2 Trapezius in hand. You wanna call down the first Trapezius, scoop in a unit, anything at all, and then call it back out or call another card from your soul that you need. And then, you can call your other copy of Trapezius from your hand, scoop in the called Trapezius from earlier, and then call another one from your soul that you need. That way, you will secure a Trapezius in your soul and still keep on spamming units from your soul for free. She is also the best ride target as of now because you wanna secure a Trapezius in the soul to pull off with your combos, especially with Midnight Bunny and your Alices. The only throwback of her is that she is a 6k base, which is pretty low, especially as a booster. But to compensate for that, you will have your Jill to work with to make an 18k column, which is also gonna hit over cross rides, which is really nice. I would say that 4 is the best ratio for her in this list, but if you only have 3 of her, you can work it out somehow. Next, aside from the 4 PGs, we run 3 copies of Skull Juggler. Alright, so since we don't run the Crimson Beast Tamer engine in this list, we have a lot of room to work with our soul chargers and our combo pieces. So I decided to bump up Skull Juggler to 3 because we need soul. If you lack soul and you wanna dig for your pieces and put it in the soul, you have a Trapezius in hand and a Skull Juggler on board. You can call a Trapezius, scoop in the Skull Juggler, and then call it back out, meaning you have another free soul to work with. Next, the last grade 1s are 2 Midnight Bunnies. Alright, so as I said before, Midnight Bunny and Purple Trapezius are best friends because they combo off really well with any column. You just have to make sure that you hit the Vanguard and you have the right pieces and the soul to work with your Trapezius, like for example a Jill. Midnight Bunny actually ensures you that your power gain for your Vanguard, which is Luquier, is not gonna go to waste because sometimes it's just a bit of a waste to just hit it for 1 damage, right? So if you have a Midnight Bunny behind her, it's not that big of a waste. Also, if your opponent only has 1 intercept and you have a Midnight Bunny and Jill column, you can use that combo right there and then provide power for your Vanguard in order to hit over defensives. We wanna run Midnight Bunny here for Trapezius because Alice can't hit alone unless you check a trigger and then give it to her. Alternate arts of Midnight Bunny because this is cuter. Alright, so let's move on to the grade 2s. We are going to run 3 copies of Nitro Juggler because the soul chargers here have more room to work with. So I wanna run at least 3 of him and then 3 of Skull Juggler to compensate for the lack of soul from before. And whenever you use your limit break, you can replenish your soul when you call these guys from your soul. It's just really nice to have random soul because you can maybe just possibly fetch out a Dreamy Fortress for free without using your Dancing Princess and your Smiling Presenter, and just use those abilities to fetch out, for example, Trapezius or Jills or anything else that you need in your soul. My favorite grade 2 in this list are 4 Jumping Jills. I actually made a video before talking about which is better between Jumping Jill and Crimson Beast Tamer. If you want to check it out, I'll leave it in the description for you guys to see. I didn't run the Crimson Beast Tamer engine. Instead, I just chose to run Jumping Jill because she is a standalone unit. You don't need to think like, oh no, I need to keep this other copy of CBT in the soul to make my other columns big. No, you don't need to do that. If you have multiple copies of Jill in the soul, you can use those separately and then make a 12k attacker. Behind Trapezius, it's an 18, so it still makes amazing numbers. If you already run Jill, congratulations to you. If you still run Crimson Beast Tamer engine, please consider running Jill instead. It feels so much better when you run her, at least in my experience. The MVP in the list right here is 4 copies of Dreamy Fortress. In Korag Rosard's tournament, Dreamy Fortress really performed amazingly, especially when I'm up against a clan like Spike Brothers. I was so close to winning it. It was too bad that he had 2 PGs in hand and that's about it. When you really time Dreamy Fortress correctly, you can really make your opponent have a bad time. Alright, so in this list, the primary aim here is to fetch at least 3 copies of Dreamy Fortress in the soul, or at least 2 of him and you have 1 in hand. Also, considering Vanguards that needs to hit the Vanguard or something like needs to attack the Vanguard, like for example, Dudley Emperor, Dreamy Fortress can just shut down that ability completely just by having him and 2 other copies of him in the soul. The only disadvantage of him is that when you're up against a Narukami or Kagero, they can just intercept, deny this, or just use 1 copy of Overlord to just run over Dreamy Fortress completely. But aside from that, you can really make Dreamy Fortress work effectively if you time him correctly. I'm actually considering on making a guide on how to use Dreamy Fortress correctly. I still lack experience on facing against different clans, but if you guys want to see something like that, I'll consider making it. I would say that this list is consistently fetching at least 2 or 3 copies of Dreamy Fortress in the soul. The reason is you run 4 Trapezius and you have Smiling Presenter. When you use your limit break, you can use Smiling Presenter again. It's just sad if he goes to the damage zone. It happened to me quite often, but if you didn't happen to go with your Dreamy Fortress turn, you can just try to go aggro and push for game. The only thing that I would like to emphasize is that timing your Dreamy Fortress correctly depending on the opponent, especially if you're facing a limit break deck in which their limit break is really devastating, like for example Dudley Emperor's Great Nature with Polaris and Narukami with Vermilion. If you found a way to time him correctly, you can secure a win right there. Finally, we have 2 copies of Dancing Princess of the Night Sky. I decided to run only 2 of her because I already have Soul Chargers, plus I have 4 Trapezius which I can spam Smiling Presenter that way. If you happen to have her, it's fine to just fetch out a unit, but it would cost a CB, so you have to be really careful on handling your CBs, especially early game, because you don't want to run out of CBs the moment you reach your grade 3 and then limit break right there, and then suddenly you don't have CBs anymore. You will need to reserve some CBs here and there for your Midnight Bunny plays and your Alice plays, so that's one thing to take note of. Moving on to the grade 3. Alright, so this one is really exciting on my part. I run 4 copies of Nightmare Doll Alice. Okay, so before I decided to run her as the heal, right now I decided to run her as the draw because it's not that bad if you have her. You can just use the booster behind her, call a Trapezius on the other side, and then reset that other column. I kinda wish that they would buff her to 11k at least, but I don't know if you guys will agree with me. When your opponent is somehow on a 10k base, like for example you're facing against Angel Feathers or Tachikaze or any other deck that somehow misrides onto their correct ride target and just happens to ride onto a 10k base, that's where Nightmare Doll Alice shines the best. Also, when you're going first and you open up with her, that's also a really good way to use your Alice because your opponent is almost always gonna be on at least a 10k or a 9k base. Next, the best ride target, the only ride you wanna go to on the early game, take note of that, is our Silverthorn Dragon Tamer Luquier. 4 copies of her, of course, because we want to ride onto her. She combos off really well with Dreamy Fortress, obviously, because when you call card from Soul, she gains plus 3k. If you maximize all 4 Dreamy Fortresses, you will have her sitting at 20k, and your opponent still needs to hit her. It just adds a lot of layers to your defense on that Dreamy Fortress turn. Her limit break really helps you a lot because it would only use your soul and not your hand cards most of the time. You always want to call out Smiling Presenter when you use her because you want to replenish your soul that moment, and Smiling Presenter is such a free card, so you want to spam her as much as possible. Next, our one-off Midnight Innovator, because he is a 12k attacker alone, so it hits over 11k base, which is really nice. This is just the tech card slot, so if you want to run a different grade 3 other than Midnight Innovator, you can do so. I just like running him because he hits over 11k base pretty easily, and that's about it. Next, the ultimate spice of the deck, which are 4 copies of Sword Magician Sarah. I decided to run her as the heal instead of the other units that we have because she is gonna be your finisher. She is a free multi-attacker, but you will need to have another grade 3 on board to work with her. She is the only way to multi-attack once your opponent reaches 5 damage. Because when your opponent reaches 5 damage, the only line of defense that they have are their PGs and their intercepts. Also, your Alices and your Midnight Bunnies won't do anything. Plus, she doesn't need a CB to work with, so if you don't have CBs anymore face up by using your limit breaks of your Luquier, and you have Sarah and you have another grade 3 in hand, you can still possibly finish the game right there. So that's about it for the list, and finally, we run 9 draws and 4 heals. I didn't go for stands this time because I don't have power columns, and with that out of the way, it really feels good when you check a draw and just replenish your hand and still keep your soul intact and using your limit break for free without using your hand that much, and just drawing into pieces is really amazing. So now my Vanguard swings and my Rearguard swings feels more free, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's about it for this list, and if you guys want to copy it, feel free to do so. I don't know why I titled this Secret Pale Moon list. Again, this list is pretty expensive because I run all 16 triple rares. If you happen to have everything here as well, feel free to copy this and then try it out yourself. This is by far my favorite deck list because it's so consistent, and just making your opponent shut up when you use your Dreamy Fortress actually feels good. Alright, so if you happen to have any questions, feel free to drop those in the comments. I would really like to answer them to the best of my abilities. And yeah, hope you find this deck list useful. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you next time.